So I wanted to talk about the test question number 7 because this creating matrices with squares and stars is challenging. Okay, so remember squares are what we use for pivots and they're non-zero numbers. Can be all kinds of numbers but not zero. Stars, they can be zeros or any other number. And remember that below pivots you have to have zeros. So we've got a 4 by 3 matrix, and I think it always helps to just draw 4 by 3, right? Not that we're going to make any conclusions from this, but I see the size. So this is A1, and this is A2. So what I want to do is, let me just get a different color going here. Black. A3, I want to create this matrix so that A1 and A2 are linearly dependent, and A3 is not in the span of those two. So let's talk about what that means. So you can't get to A3, you cannot get to this vector, A3, by taking linear combinations of those two. So that means you, just that is as it is. Cannot get to A3 by linear combinations of A1 and A2. So what does it mean to be linearly dependent? So these two vectors being linearly dependent means they're either multiples of each other or one of them is a zero vector. Okay, so we've got options. So let's just start drawing some. So I could make A1 the zero vector, and I could make A2 the zero vector. Since they're both the zero vector, they're dependent, and then I want to make sure that this A3 is not a linear combination, so I could put a pivot here, and then below pivots you have zeros. Okay, another way, so there were many options for this. Another way is you could make the one of them the zero vector. Let's just go with that. I could make one of them the zero vector, and then put a pivot here. And then for the third one, not to be a linear combination, I would put the pivot here. Below pivots are zeros, and above pivots can be stars for just echelon form. So that would be another answer. Okay, so what if I didn't want to have a zero vector and I just wanted to show multiples? So then I could make a pivot here and zeros below the pivot. And then I could put a star here and zeros below. So I can see that these two are multiples of each other. And so then the third column would have a star, and then a pivot here and zeros below it. So that was, and you don't want to have, so let me just say what you don't want to have is this pivot, and then 0, 0, 0, star, 0, 0, 0. So if you have, you want the pivot in this position, because if the pivot was down here, then you would just switch the rows, right? Because you always don't want to have like a row of zeros in there. So the pivot should have been in this position with a star above it and then zeros below. I hope that helps. Creating these kind of matrices is a little challenging, and they're not going away.